I didn't notice her at first. Not the way a man notices a woman. It was raining. Heavy. The kind that doesn't ask permission, just falls. Thick sheets slamming against my windshield as I pulled into the driveway of the old two-story house tucked at the end of Maple Street. I was 20. Maybe a little unsure of who I was. I had just transferred colleges, moved 2 states away from home, and everything I owned sat boxed in the back of my rusted Corolla. I didn't know anyone here. I barely knew myself. She opened the door before I could knock. Her silhouette was framed by the warm yellow light spilling from inside. She didn't smile, not really. But something flickered in her eyes. Amusement, maybe. Or curiosity. "Matthew, right?" she said. Her voice was low. "Velvet wrapped and sir." I nodded. Wiped rain off my forehead with a sleeve. She stood in the doorway without moving. Watching me. "I'm Nora." She wasn't what I expected. I'd imagined someone older, stiff, maybe. But she was different. Her hair was up, but pieces of it had come loose, curling around her neck. Her sleeves were rolled to the elbow, skin pale against a black button-down. And her eyes, green, sharp, held me a second longer than they needed to. "Come in. You're soaking." I stepped past her. The warmth hit me first. Then the smell, coffee, a trace of lavender, and something faintly sweet like vanilla. The house creaked softly, alive with age. Hardwood floors. A narrow staircase to the left. Books everywhere. Walls that whispered stories. She showed me to the room upstairs. It had a small window that overlooked the garden, and a bookshelf already half full. "You're welcome to use the kitchen, of course," she said. "Laundry's in the basement. Quiet hours after 10, though I don't enforce that too harshly." I nodded, still dripping onto the floor like some lost stray. When I turned to thank her, I caught her watching me. Not my eyes. Lower. Just for a second. Then she turned. "Dinner's at 7, she said. "I usually cook. You're welcome to join." I didn't unpack much that night. I remember sitting at the edge of the bed, staring at the hallway. The low hum of jazz drifted up through the floorboards, soft like a sigh. I could hear her moving downstairs, drawers opening, something simmering, the occasional clink of glass. I told myself I was just being polite when I came down for dinner. She'd set 2 places. Candlelight flickered on the table, though she hadn't said anything about candles. I sat across from her, watching her pour wine with the ease of someone who'd done this many times. Her fingers brushed mine as she handed me a glass. They were warm. Dry. Deliberate. We ate. Mostly in silence. Occasionally, our eyes would meet over the rim of a glass, and we'd hold it, just a little too long. "Where are you from, Matthew?" "Up north. Near Traverse Bay." "Pretty country." "Too quiet." She smirked. "Some people like the quiet." She asked what I studied. I told her I was changing majors, again. She didn't laugh. Didn't judge. Just said, "You're young. That's allowed." She leaned back in her chair. One leg crossed over the other. The black fabric of her pants stretched softly over her thigh. I shouldn't have noticed. But I did. She watched me. Still. Like I was a puzzle she wasn't in a hurry to solve. Over the next few days, the routine began to settle. I studied. Unpacked. Went for walks. And she existed like a presence in the air. Quiet but everywhere. She read in the mornings by the front window, knees tucked up on the couch, glasses low on her nose. At night, she cooked, music always playing low, Ella Fitzgerald, sometimes Miles Davis. She moved like water, fluid, self-contained. There was grace in her solitude. Once, I came downstairs to grab coffee and found her in the kitchen, barefoot, robe slightly open at the collar. She didn't flinch. Just turned to offer me a smile, small, unreadable. "You make a lot of noise up there." I blinked. "Sorry, I didn't mean." She waved it off. "Not a complaint. Just an observation." And then she said it, softly, as if it had slipped out before she could catch it. "You walk like a man who's still afraid to take up space." I didn't know how to answer that. I just stared at her. And she smiled. One evening, a storm knocked the power out. I was half asleep when the house groaned into blackness. I stumbled downstairs with a flashlight and found her already in the living room, lighting candles. "You afraid of the dark?" she asked. "Only when I can't see where I'm going." She laughed, soft and low. The rain lashed against the windows. She handed me a cup of tea, warm, fragrant, and we sat by the fireplace, the only sound the wind and the occasional crackle of wick. Her robe had slipped slightly, exposing the line of her collarbone. Her hair was down. She looked undone. Not in a messy way. In a real way. Human. Beautiful. We talked for hours. About everything and nothing. Books we loved. Places we'd never been. Her ex-husband, though she didn't say much. My father, who'd never quite learned how to speak without shouting. At one point, she reached for her tea, and our hands touched. Just touched. But her fingers lingered, barely, and I felt it in my chest like a match being struck in slow motion. Neither of us pulled away. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking of that moment. That quiet, unspoken moment. How it felt. How my skin remembered hers. I stared at the ceiling for hours, heart thudding, body warm beneath the blanket, breathing shallow like I'd just run a mile. It wasn't lust. Not quite. It was something older. Deeper. Something I didn't yet have words for. There was a door between our rooms. A thin one, white, old, the kind with a shaky brass handle and a lock that didn't really work. Technically, it connected my room to the study she rarely used. But at night, when the lights were off and the music stopped, I could hear her breathing through it. Soft. Steady. Barely there. And I began to listen for it, like a heartbeat under the floorboards. The house shifted with the seasons. Autumn came quickly. The trees turned ochre, and the windows grew cold to the touch. She started wearing thick sweaters and sipping tea by the fireplace with her legs folded underneath her. Some evenings, I stayed downstairs longer. Pretending to read. Pretending not to watch her from the corner of my eye. I learned her rhythms. How she always paused when turning a page, like the words needed time to settle in her. How she hummed faintly, absent-mindedly, when cooking. How she bit the inside of her cheek when something she read bothered her. She never said anything when I lingered. But I caught her watching me, too. Once, as I leaned over the table to grab the salt, she looked up, and her gaze caught on the line where my shirt had lifted, exposing a slice of skin above the waistband of my jeans. She didn't avert her eyes. She just looked. Like an artist deciding where to place the next brushstroke. I started cooking sometimes. Mostly bad pasta and over-salted eggs, but she humored me. One night, I made risotto and overcooked it. It stuck to the pan and came out like glue. I laughed awkwardly, apologizing as I scraped it onto her plate. She tasted it, then gave a slow, exaggerated sigh. Mediocre. But charming. You're not supposed to say that out loud. I believe in honesty. Especially when someone needs improvement. She sipped her wine, watching me over the rim. I raised an eyebrow. Are you always this hard to impress? No, she said, with the smallest smile. Just with boys who clearly want to be men. I swallowed. That hit something deep. She stood to refill her glass. And as she passed behind me, her hand brushed the back of my neck, barely. Just fingers drifting like a breeze. But my skin lit up like fire beneath them. I stopped seeing her as just my landlady. She became gravity. A pull I couldn't fight. Didn't want to fight. Some nights I imagined her in the next room, slipping out of her clothes, her bare feet brushing the cold wood floor, the slow exhale as she slid between sheets. I shouldn't have. But I did. One Saturday, she asked if I wanted to help clean out the attic. It was dusty. Claustrophobic. Boxes full of forgotten things, old records, coats, faded photos. At one point, I found an old camera and lifted it. "This yours?" She looked over her shoulder. Her face softened. "Used to be. Back when I thought I'd be the next Annie Leibovitz." "Why'd you stop?" She didn't answer right away. Just took the camera gently from my hands. "Life," she said. "Or fear. Hard to tell them apart, sometimes." She sat down on an old chest and looked at me. Really looked. "Do you ever feel like you're waiting for something? But you don't know what it is?" I nodded. "All the time." "Yeah," she said quietly. "Me too." The attic was quiet. The dust hung in the air like memories that hadn't settled. And for a moment, I wanted to reach out. Not to kiss her. Not yet. Just to place my hand on her knee. To feel her warmth. To say, "I'm here. I see you." But I didn't. Later that night, I found a note under my door. Just 4 words. "You can come down." No signature. No explanation. My heart thudded. I opened the door slowly, the hallway dark. Her study door, the one with the old brass handle, was slightly ajar. She was inside. Alone. Barefoot. Wearing a soft robe, dark blue, tied loosely at the waist. She didn't look up from her book when I entered. "Couldn't sleep," she said, almost a whisper. "Me neither." I stepped in. The room smelled like her perfume, amber and something floral I could never name. She closed her book slowly and set it on the armrest. Then she looked at me. Eyes quiet. Serious. "There's something dangerous about moments like this," she said. My throat tightened. "Why?" "Because everything's soft. And quiet. And it's easy to forget the world outside." She stood. Walked slowly toward me. Stopped just a few inches away. I could feel the heat between us, radiating like a silent fire. She looked up at me, her face unreadable. "You're not a boy, Matthew," she said. I couldn't speak. "I know you feel it too," she added. I didn't answer her right away. When she said, "I know you feel it too," the words sat heavy between us, like the air had thickened, like time itself paused to watch what I'd do next. I think she wanted me to step forward. To reach. To confirm the tension that had been crackling in every glance and quiet moment for weeks. But I didn't. I just stood there. Breathing. My body pulled toward her, my mind clawing for control. And for one long, unbearable moment, nothing happened. Then she stepped back. Just half a step. Not angry. Not cold. Just disappointed. And it broke something inside me. For the next few days, we didn't talk much. She went about her routines, and so did I. But the energy had shifted. Like the needle on a compass had been thrown off, and now neither of us could find true north. She didn't avoid me. But she didn't linger either. And I hated it. Not the silence. but the absence inside it. I began to notice the little things she stopped doing. She no longer set out a second wine glass automatically. She didn't leave the record player spinning in the evening like she used to. She stopped leaving the door to the study cracked open. I kept trying to tell myself I hadn't done anything wrong. But part of me knew I had. One night, I stayed out late walking through the neighborhood, trying to tire myself into clarity. The trees were bare now. Their branches clawed at the night sky like ink lines on parchment. I came back after midnight. The house was dark. Quiet. As I passed the living room, I saw a soft glow, faint candlelight spilling beneath the doorframe. I paused. Waited. Then, without thinking, I turned the handle. She was sitting on the couch. Cross-legged. A book in her lap, but not reading. Just staring ahead at nothing. She didn't look surprised to see me. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. I shook my head. She nodded slightly. "You're not the only one." I stepped inside. She didn't tell me to sit, but I did, carefully, on the far edge of the couch, keeping a respectful space between us. And for a few minutes, we just listened to the candle flicker. Then she said, very quietly, "You scared me the other night." I turned to her. "I didn't mean to." "I know. But you looked at me like you wanted something, and then stopped yourself. Like I was dangerous." "You're not." She smiled faintly. "I am. To you." My heart beat faster. Why? Because I know myself. I know what I want. And I've spent years keeping people at arm's length. But with you, she trailed off. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were tired, but open. Honest. With you, it's different. Because I can't decide if I should pull you closer or send you away. Her voice cracked on the last word. I didn't think. I reached across the space and gently touched her hand. She didn't move. Her skin was soft. Cold from the air. But the moment our fingers touched, it was like something exhaled between us. She looked down. Then up. And she said, in the quietest voice, "You make me feel young and old at the same time." I moved closer. "I want to understand you," I said. "No," she whispered. "You want to feel me. There's a difference." But she didn't let go. That night, I didn't go back upstairs. We didn't kiss. We didn't even touch more than hands. But we sat there, side by side, her shoulder brushing mine, her breath warming the space between us, until the candle burned itself out. When she finally stood, she placed her palm against my cheek, slowly, like testing a memory. "Go to sleep," she whispered. "Before I forget myself." I dreamed of her that night. Of her voice saying my name like it meant something. Of her hands on my chest. Of her robe falling open, not in hunger, but in trust. I woke hard. Ache in my chest. Ache in my blood. The days after that blurred. We were careful. Civil, but always circling. She made tea and offered me a cup without speaking. I would bring her books I thought she might like and leave them outside her study. Sometimes we passed in the hallway, and she would pause, just for a second, and our eyes would lock like magnets. And then keep walking. I started writing again. Journaling. Trying to name the thing growing in me. It wasn't lust. Or maybe it was, but dressed in something deeper. Something I'd never felt before. Something raw and terrifying. Then, one night, I heard music. Late. Past midnight. Soft piano, Debussy, I think. The notes drifted through the floor like silk. I followed it down. She was in the study. The door open. She was standing by the record player, hair undone, a loose sweater slipping off one shoulder. She turned. Saw me. And didn't flinch. "Come here," she said. Her voice wasn't a question. I stepped inside. She held up a small object. An old Polaroid camera. "Let me take your picture." "Why?" "Because I want to remember you." I stood still. She lifted the camera. Focused. Click. The flash lit the room for a fraction of a second, and I saw her face in the glow, calm, but trembling ever so slightly. She set the camera down. Walked over. Stopped in front of me. This time, she didn't hesitate. Her hand touched my shirt, gently, at the collar. She traced her fingers down the center, slowly, until they reached the last button. Then she looked up at me. "Tell me to stop." I didn't. I couldn't. So she didn't. She undid the first button slowly. Not like in the movies, there was no music swell, no sudden gasp. Just the soft click of thread slipping through fabric, the pause of her breath before the second. I stood there, motionless. Not because I was afraid, but because something holy was unfolding in front of me. Like if I moved too fast, I'd break the spell. She wasn't seducing me. Not in the way I'd once imagined women did. There was no performance. There was only presence. She opened my shirt to the middle of my chest, then paused, her fingers splayed lightly against my skin. "You're shaking," she whispered. "I know. So am I." The light was low. Only the soft glow of a lamp in the corner, its shade tilted just slightly. The shadows made her sweater look deeper, richer, like it was swallowing her whole. "Sit," she said softly. I did, on the edge of the couch. She knelt in front of me, hands resting on my thighs, but not heavy. She looked up, searching my face like it held a language she was still learning. "I don't want to hurt you," she said. "You won't." She exhaled, relieved, maybe. Or afraid. Then she leaned forward and placed her forehead against my chest. Her hands slowly slid up, over my ribs, then around my back, pulling me into her. Not sexual. Not yet. Just close. Closer than I'd ever been to anyone before. I wrapped my arms around her. Her body was warm. Grounded. The rhythm of her breath matched mine within seconds, like two clocks syncing. We stayed like that for what felt like an hour. Or a minute. Time had collapsed. Eventually, she stood. Held out her hand. And I followed. She didn't take me to her bedroom. She took me to mine. There was something deeply intimate about that. Like she wasn't claiming me, but choosing to be with me, where I lived, in my space, among my books and unwashed clothes and that one chipped mug I always used. She sat on the edge of my bed. Looked around, as if seeing it for the first time. "It smells like you in here," she said. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just smiled. She stood and walked to the window, pulling the curtain slightly open. The moonlight poured across her face and shoulder, catching in the strands of her hair. "Do you want me here?" she asked without turning. "Yes." She closed the curtain again. And turned to face me. When we finally kissed, it wasn't sudden. It was an answer to a question that had been hanging between us for weeks. Her lips were soft, but sure. The kind of kiss that says, "I know where I am." She tasted like wine and mint, and something else I couldn't name. I kissed her back slowly, carefully, like every movement had weight. Her hands went to my jaw. Mine to her waist. And then, very gently, she guided me backward until we were lying down. The kiss deepened, but not urgently. We were learning each other. Mapping each breath, each curve of skin. I traced my fingers along the hem of her sweater, and she let me. She guided my hand beneath it, and I felt the warm softness of her stomach, the slow inhale as I touched her. She leaned back slightly. Pulled the sweater over her head. She wasn't wearing anything beneath. I froze. Not from fear, but awe. She didn't look away. Didn't cover herself. She let me see her. Not just her body, but her comfort in it, her years, her story. My breath caught. "You're beautiful," I said, barely above a whisper. She smiled, small, almost sad. "I used to believe that. I still do." She climbed back over me, straddling gently, kissing the hollow of my neck, my collarbone, the edge of my jaw. Every inch of skin she touched felt like a secret being told for the first time. When our bodies finally joined, it wasn't rushed. She led. Not like a teacher, but like someone who wanted me to feel everything fully. She whispered to me, not dirty things, but honest ones. "Breathe with me. You're doing fine. Don't close your eyes. Look at me." And I did. I watched her above me, hair falling forward, lips parted. Every breath was a soft wave. Every movement, slow and deliberate. She wasn't there to conquer me. She was there to show me how deep connection could go. We moved together in silence, save for breath and the quiet gasp of cotton sheets beneath us. My hands found her back, her hips, the curve of her waist. I memorized the texture of her skin, the way her muscles shifted under my touch. She bent down to kiss my chest, and I felt her breath echo in my ribs. At one point, she whispered my name. Not like a call, but like a prayer. After, she lay on her side, tracing small circles on my shoulder with her fingertip. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The only sound was our breathing. Then she said softly, "This doesn't make things easier." "I know. But I don't regret it." I turned toward her. Neither did I. She didn't stay the whole night. At around 3 a.m., she slipped out of bed quietly. I pretended to be asleep, but I felt the shift of air as she bent down and kissed my forehead, just once. Then the click of the door. And silence. But I wasn't alone. Not really. Because her scent stayed on the pillow. Her warmth lingered in the blanket. And inside my chest, something new had begun. Something fragile. Something dangerous. But real. The morning after felt like walking across a frozen lake. Every step careful. Every silence louder than the one before. I woke up alone. The sheets beside me were still wrinkled, still warm at the center. Her scent lingered, skin, lavender, faint traces of candle smoke. But she was gone. And something about that emptiness unsettled me. Not because I expected her to stay. But because a part of me wanted her to. I moved through the morning in slow motion. Showered. Dressed. Avoided the mirror. Downstairs, the house was quiet. No jazz. No clinking dishes. Just the ticking of the wall clock in the kitchen. I poured myself coffee, though I barely drank it. My hands felt strange, like they still remembered where she'd placed them. Like they were waiting to touch her again. Around noon, I heard footsteps overhead. She was home. But she didn't come down. It wasn't until late afternoon that I saw her again. I'd stepped out to take the trash around back. As I turned the corner, she was there, kneeling in the garden, hands in the soil, sleeves pushed up. She looked up at me. Something in her expression flickered. Not guilt. Not regret. But distance. "Hey," I said. "Hey." I watched her for a moment. "Want help?" She shook her head. "Just needed the air." I hesitated. Then nodded and turned to go. "Matthew." I stopped. She stood slowly. Wiped her hands on her thighs. Then, walking toward me, she said in a voice much quieter than usual, "Last night was a lot." I nodded. "It meant something to me," I said. She looked away. Then back. "I know." I waited. For more. For her to say "me too" or "I feel the same." But instead she asked, "Do you know what this is? What we're doing?" I didn't have an answer. So she gave me one. "It's real. That's the hard part." We sat on the back steps, side by side, legs almost touching. She rubbed her palms together, dust falling from her skin. "I didn't plan this," she said. "I know. I fought it. Every night. I felt it too." She looked at me, finally, fully. "You make me forget how old I am. And then, the second I remember, I feel like I'm doing something wrong." "You're not." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Society would disagree. I leaned forward, elbows on knees, trying to find the right words. "I don't care what society thinks. I care how you feel when you look at me." That made her pause. And for a moment, it felt like maybe, just maybe, the crack in the wall between us was healing. Then she said, softly, "The problem is, when I look at you, I forget where the edge is." The days that followed were strange. Not distant. Not quite. But something had changed. We no longer avoided each other, but we didn't lean in, either. There were no more late nights on the couch. No brushed fingertips. No lingering at doorways. She went about her life, reading, cooking, moving through the house like it was her skin again. And I watched her. Hungered quietly. I started dreaming of her voice. Of the weight of her body over mine. Of the way she whispered my name into my neck like she was trying to bury it beneath my skin. Waking up from those dreams was painful. Because the space between us was real again. Thick. Careful. Fragile. One night, I came home late from the library. As I passed the study, I saw the light on. The door cracked. She was there. Glass of wine in hand. Record spinning something old and slow. She didn't look up. I stepped inside. Waited. She didn't stop me. "Can I sit?" I asked. She nodded. I sat on the couch. She remained in the chair, legs curled beneath her. "You look tired," I said. "I am." "Can't sleep?" She shook her head. "Not lately." "Me neither." A long silence. Then, without looking at me, she said, "I want you. Still." The breath caught in my chest. "But I don't know what that makes me." "It makes you human," I said. She turned to me slowly. Her eyes wet, but steady. "And if I told you I needed you to slow down? That I need to feel safe in this, whatever this is?" I nodded. "Then I'd slow down." She rose. Crossed the room. Stood in front of me. "You said something once," she whispered. "You said you wanted to understand me." "I do." "Then hold me. And don't ask for anything else." I wrapped my arms around her. She folded into me like water into a hollow space. We sat there for hours. Her head against my chest. My fingers gently stroking her back, over the soft rise of her spine. She wasn't mine. Not in the way the world defines it. But in that moment, she trusted me with something raw and wordless. And I held it carefully, like a flame in both hands. At some point, she whispered, "I'm afraid of needing you." I didn't answer. I just held her tighter. The night was quiet. Too quiet, as if the house itself was holding its breath. She was there when I got home, waiting in the living room, the soft glow of candlelight outlining the curve of her neck, the way her hair fell loose and wild around her shoulders. The dark blue robe she wore fluttered with every subtle movement, the fabric whispering secrets against her skin. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. The way she looked at me, slow, steady, was an invitation and a challenge all at once. I closed the distance between us, heart pounding in a rhythm I hadn't known was possible. Every step felt electric, charged with the memory of every brush of her hand, every stolen glance that had come before. Her eyes held mine, dark pools reflecting both hesitation and desire. I reached out, trembling, and brushed a stray lock of hair behind her ear, fingers lingering against the warmth of her cheek. She leaned into the touch, the faintest sigh escaping her lips. Our bodies spoke without words. I traced the line of her jaw, down to the curve of her throat, where the soft pulse of her heartbeat beat loud enough to drown out my racing thoughts. Her skin was cool under my fingertips, but beneath, a quiet fire smoldered, waiting to be fanned to life. She let me lead, but with a grace that reminded me this was her moment to give, or to hold back. Her hands found my wrists, gentle but firm, anchoring me. "I want this," she whispered. "And I want you," I replied, voice rough with feeling. Our lips met again, this time deeper, slower, exploring the spaces between hesitation and trust. The world outside melted away, leaving only the fragile cocoon of candlelight and breath. Her hands slid under my shirt, fingers tracing the lines of muscle and bone as if memorizing a map only she could read. I let my hands roam the delicate curve of her back, the soft swell of her hips, the warmth of her skin burning through the thin fabric of her robe. With trembling fingers, I loosened the sash, and the robe slipped open, falling away like a whispered promise. Every inch of her was breathtaking. Not because of perfection, but because of truth, the story her skin told in soft scars and gentle curves, the quiet strength in her posture, the way her chest rose and fell with steady breaths. I kissed the hollow of her collarbone, tasting the salt of her skin, the subtle sweetness beneath. Her eyes closed, lips parted in a sigh that sent shivers down my spine. I slid my hands lower, feeling the delicate heat pooling beneath my touch. The rhythm of our bodies was slow, sacred, a dance of discovery and surrender. She guided me with quiet confidence, a silent language of hands and lips and whispered names. Every touch was an echo of 1,000 unsaid things, promises, fears, longings. I felt her pulse beneath my palm, the way her breath hitched as I traced the curve of her waist, the dip of her back. Her fingers tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, as if to erase the distance that had stretched between us for too long. We moved together in perfect harmony. No rush. No need. Just two souls weaving closer, thread by thread. Her skin was a map I followed with reverence, soft and warm, alive with every heartbeat. Our breaths mingled, shallow and urgent, a symphony of shared vulnerability. Her voice, barely a whisper, broke the silence. "Stay with me." I did. And as we lay tangled in the quiet aftermath, her head resting on my chest, the world outside ceased to exist. No judgment. No fear. Only the pulse of skin against skin, the steady rise and fall of breath, the fragile beauty of two imperfect people daring to touch eternity in a single night.